the group discussion. Welcome to the Emerging Technologies Consortium. The Emerging Technologies Consortium is led by Anna Noon, who is in the room with us today, and myself, Kerry Harmer. We'd like to acknowledge the land on which Mount Royal University is situated, and I am currently living and working. So in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that Mount Royal University is situated on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy. That includes the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, and the Îyârhe Nakoda nations, and the Métis Nation, Region 3, and all of the people who make their homes on the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. I'll hand it over to you, Anna, to lead the session today.
Thank you, Kerry. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are very, very fortunate that we have three very, very talented individuals who will be presenting and sharing their experience working on a Boreal Forest VR experience. So I'm going to introduce the three of them, and maybe if you just want to kind of wave your hand when I start your introduction so people can kind of put a face to the name, which is always nice. So first up, we have Caleb Zarn. So Caleb graduated from the broadcasting program here at MRU in 2011. And in 2021, it marked his 10th year working in the video production industry in Calgary. The first 8.5 years were spent working at an international energy company as a videographer in the corporate communications group. And then the years went by that kept him busy producing, writing, directing, shooting, editing, animating, and even providing the voice for many of the videos. Projects ranged from the work site orientations and safety culture videos to executive updates and external marketing content. In July of 2019, an appealing opportunity to join the post-secondary world became available, so Caleb joined the academic media group here at Mount Royal. And he is now a producer, director within the AMG, where he works with faculty create engaging media that supports teaching and learning. So welcome, Caleb. Next, we have Ian. So Ian has been working professionally in film, video, and broadcasting productions since he was 17 years old. During his 16 years of experience, Ian has worked on a wide range of projects, either in the camera department or producing and directing. Past projects and clients include ATB Financial, General Motors Canada, Labatts, NHL, Alberta Health Services, Nexen, ABC, NBC, CBC, CTV, TSN, music videos, and educational content. Ian joined the Mount Royal University in 2012 and is the team lead for the academic media group. So welcome, Ian. And last but definitely not least, we have Felix. So Felix is an assistant professor with the Department of Earth and Environmental Sciences here at Mount Royal. He joined the department in the summer of 2018 from the University of Waterloo. He teaches plant survey and classification and terrestrial ecology. His approach is grounded in the belief that learning in the earth and environmental science disciplines should progress beyond the theoretical knowledge by providing students with the practical skills required to address real-world environmental challenges. This is actualized through his commitment to the delivery of high-quality and innovative research-led teaching, which accords students the opportunity to learn using field instruments and standard protocols to collect and analyze environmental data that are relevant to the understanding of environmental processes. So again, please join me in welcoming our three presenters today. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Anna, and thank you for having us today and being able to join us. So today we're going to be talking about our Boreal Forest VR experience. And the very first thing that we're going to show you is a little sample of what this was. So it was in 3 parts, and we'll just start playing the video here. So there was a drone component, an interaction with the students, and then there was the 360 VR experience that we created. So we'll just listen.
This study site is called Passiflora Fen and is located in the Stony Mountain area, about 50 kilometers south of Fort McMurray, Alberta, Canada. The site is a mineral-poor treed fen ecosystem. The vegetation is characterized by a conifer-dominated mixed-wood upland forest that slopes directly into a hummocky treed fen area dominated by tamarack and black spruce stands into the open fen area, consisting of different types of low-lying vegetation, such as sedges, shrubs, and mosses.
Here we're at the Stony Mountains south of Fort McMurray at our Passiflora Fen site. We are actually looking at the differences between both sides of the road in terms of how the hydrological flow has been impeded perpendicularly. And now we are conducting an ecological monitoring project here, mostly to my right, to understand how this disturbance has impacted this port fen.
You are standing on a road that bisected an ecosystem that was once connected. This road was built over 40 years ago to allow access for the installation and maintenance of telecommunication towers in the Stony Mountain area near Fort McMurray, Alberta. You are required to follow the researchers on a field trip to assess how this road has impacted the ecosystems on the bisected landscape. You are standing in the instrumented portion of the treed fen. This area of the fen is instrumented with groundwater wells and EC systems for continuous monitoring of energy, water, and carbon fluxes within the ecosystem. Notice how the height of the tower is higher than that of all the trees within its footprint. Use the highlighted hotspots to learn more about the components of the EC system and how the monitoring is conducted by researchers.
So here we are at our eddy covariance and meteorological tower. Both systems actually automatically log data to this tower every half an hour. And about bi-weekly or weekly, we check on these towers and download the data.
Oh, you're on mute, Felix.
Yeah, I just noticed that. Thanks. Yeah, just to jump in to explain what we just observed there, it's a virtual reality tour, which is actually giving us the opportunity to bring in what we talk about in classroom that actually exist outside into the classroom. So these are things that we're not able to do before. So students end up studying a lot of theoretical aspect of environmental science without having the ability to actually experience them in real life. And experiential learning is actually at the core of the pedagogy of environmental science. So students need to touch, feel, and actually interact with the environmental materials that they are working with. And the idea, of what we do in environmental studies, science, is to understand the interaction between elements of the environment and the living things in this environment. So we try to answer questions like, why does some winter come the time it comes? What happens during winter? How does that impact wildlife? How does that impact processes? Why do the leaves fall during the fall? And why are things this way, right? And then on top of that, we try to understand how this changes in human activities, like things like mining, industry, road construction, how these things can change the processes that the environment will usually mediate on its own without any disturbance. So the key aspect of what we're trying to achieve with this is the aspect that in environmental science, what we're trying to do is to engage students in an exploratory way. So without just giving them the theory and trying to give them that practical experience that they need to get the job done when they are done or when they are done with a degree. And one of the challenges we have in actualizing this could be discussed as temporal and as well as spatial. So temporal from the perspective of seasonality. Currently it's winter, and I'm currently teaching terrestrial ecology this semester. I'm not able to take students, even without the pandemic and the lockdowns, I wouldn't be able to take students out to the field by this time of the year. We are only limited by what we can do because most of the processes that we are discussing in my current course actually happen in the summer. And that's when most of the growing and active living happens in ecosystems. So in order to bring this into the classroom, we need to have a way to capture that so that when it's time for that course, we can deliver that to the students. And another thing with regards to the special constraint is the fact that within Alberta, for instance, most of the environmental disturbances that occur in the province happen up north. So places like Fort McMurray, where we have a lot of oil sand and industries going on that are disturbing the boreal forest. The boreal forest is one of the most important ecosystems in the Earth biome. And we are training students who can actually gain some knowledge and skills that will be used to address these problems that will help to mitigate the impact of our industrial processes on ecosystem. So our ability to show them what they are learning and how these things actually function or what they look like in real life is a major constraint. So virtual reality presents an opportunity for us to actually actualize that. So we can actually engage our students in a way that what we are studying in the classroom, we can go outside to explore that, but still by sitting in the classroom using this technology. So there are other places where this can, within the field of environmental science, there are other places where we can apply this. A lot of people here will know about the idea of climate change and the melting of the polar ice caps. We are not able to take students that close to the eye of an ice cap that is melting. Virtual reality has the potential to get students as very close as seeing what is going on and how these processes happen. Another perspective could be things like measurement of pollution from industrial stacks, which involves a lot of climbing up very high stacks. And because of the safety concerns, we are not able to take students on this, but students are being trained to do these measurements at the end of their training. So virtual reality also gives us the opportunity to actually teach that and show that to students so that they can experience it in an immersive environment. We also have things like coral reefs that are disappearing. So in this case, we are looking at under the sea or below sea processes, which safety concerns, a lot of logistics, we wouldn't be able to get students to observe these things in real time. But again, this is an opportunity that virtual reality affords us. And also disturbances like fire, like the 2016 Fort McMurray wildfire. These are some of the things that are changing in our environment. And as these changes are happening, we need to understand how the environment is resetting to help counter the effect of these disturbances. Again, we won't be able to take students to these sites to observe the degree or the rate of disturbance or the scale. But again, with the combination of other techniques and virtual reality, we can actually make this happen. So for myself, the research I was interested in doing on this pilot project is related to the areas I've been doing my work for the past 10 years, which is in the boreal forest regions of Alberta. So in this area, I try to study disturbances to this natural important ecosystem. And the disturbances range from natural to human disturbances. So the natural disturbance will be things like fire, and the human disturbances are things like oil and gas exploration, forestry. And once these things happen, they affect the physical structure of the ecosystem. So just think about creating a road in the middle of a forest. It affects the way wildlife moves around. It affects the way light comes into the site. It affects the hydrology of the site. So all those elements of the environment that keep it working will be disturbed as a result of this. So this is the context of the work we are doing. And in my terrestrial ecology class, we actually use these ecosystems and some of my results from my research to teach the students about these natural and human disturbances. But what is the missing link was connecting this theory to practical, like what does it look like? What is the scale of these disturbances? So this is how the idea came about, that we can actually go out and do this virtual reality videos and content, create this content that students can actually use to apply what we are discussing in class and get a real feel of what these things are and what it looks like, so that eventually when they get out there to do work related in this environment, they will have a good sense of what they are facing. So our goal for this project was to really bring in the outdoor into the classroom so that students can sit in the comfort of the classroom using technology to immerse themselves in an environment that relates to the theoretical context or content that we are discussing in the classroom. And that way, it will help us actualize that goal of learning in environmental science, which is being engaging, exploratory, and at the same time experiential for the students.
So at this point, we got involved. Felix had applied for a teaching learning enhancement grant. And as part of that grant application, the academic media group was listed as providing support in the creation of making a 360 VR experience, which we had never done before. And we did not have the technology to do it. And it was complete ground zero. So we had to do some research. We had to get the gear. And then we had to go up to Fort McMurray. And it was quite a quick turnaround time. So we didn't get the gear until halfway through July. And then I think about 2 weeks later, we were up at Fort McMurray filming. So a very short learning period for Caleb and I. So then we're filming in Muskeg after this. And so we go up to Fort McMurray, and at this point, we meet with University of Waterloo students. And I'm just going to get Felix to talk about the connection he has and why it was University of Waterloo students helping us.
Thanks, Caleb. Thanks, Ian. So my PhD, my grad studies was at Waterloo. So this is the group I've been working with and the group I did my PhD work and postdoc work with. And with this group, we've actually established long-term research sites in this region that I think since 2011, so about 10 years now. And we've been monitoring these sites. And the reason we are actually monitoring these sites is we are using them as references to understand how oil and gas development in the region is actually impacting the natural ecosystems that are located in this site. So these are good natural labs or experimental grounds that we can actually use to teach students. And also because we have a lot of data collected on this site, we're able to use them, and the data that we've collected in the past years can be used in the classroom so that students will understand how these things we are monitoring are actually used in decision making and policy development. So the collaboration with University of Waterloo was built out of my long-term relationship with this research group, and they already had students on ground who were working on this site. So it was a good opportunity for us to just go in and also talk to the students and hear from them. And also, because we are using this for teaching, peer-to-peer learning is always important. So there is an opportunity for our students to hear from students like them, other grad students, but it kind of has a pain that it does when they are hearing from their peers working on places like this. Yeah.
So at this point, our first day, we arrived, I think in the afternoon, and as we go to meet with the University of Waterloo students to get briefed on locations and what to expect for the area. And during this meeting, there's this point where Caleb and I kind of look at each other, because we noticed that all the University of Waterloo students are scratching their arms to an obscene amount. And in the conversation that ensued, we discovered that, oh, it's mosquito breeding season, and there's literal clouds of mosquitoes everywhere. And Felix, Caleb, and I did not anticipate this. We did not think about, hey, this might be awful. So the very next morning, before we went out filming, we went from Mark's work warehouse to Canadian Tire, found out that there's another Mark's Work warehouse trying to find a mosquito bug suit for the three of us. And you can see in this photo, Caleb and I are wearing ours. And we also bought a 6-pack of bug spray. And I think we used at least a bottle of bug spray every day. And every time we got out of the Jeep, we were swarmed. So, which made for some interesting footage on some of the 360 stuff. They're surrounded by bugs in a few instances. So if we look at our next slide, so there was the bug challenge. And now there's the next challenge we had, which is filming in a muskeg. And so I'll get Caleb to start the first video. And this is the walkway to get out to the site. I'm not sure how clear it is in the video, but the ground is bouncing with everything. It was like a trampoline with a foot of water on it. No matter what, you took a step and there'd be a ripple effect in the ground underneath 5 feet away, which is exciting when you're going out there with a brand new camera. So then we have our next video, which yeah, I'll let it talk.
Look at this.
The things I do for my team.
Commitment. Here we are. Right on.
Yeah, I'm
Look
trying
at
to go
this
below my
place.
knees, actually. Goodness. I'm sinking.
I made the mistake of stepping off the trail, and I slowly started to sink at this point. So it was quite a unique environment to film in, especially because, as I said, brand new camera, and we would have it on a stand. And you know, due to the nature of 360 footage, the camera crew needs to hide. So we would very carefully leave this camera and find a position to hide, and be looking at it like a hawk, hoping it wouldn't tip down and be a very short-lived camera. So if we look at our next slide here, so this was a unique project as it brought multiple mediums together. There was traditional video production, there was drone photography, and the drone photography was helping tell the story of the features in the land. We saw the one shot early on in the sample video showing what one side of the road was this beautiful forest, while the other side was drained of, or rather flooded of water. And so no trees were growing there anymore. So the drone photography helped tell that story. And as I said, this was a brand new 360 camera, or rather experience for us, capturing footage through 360. So we were constantly learning as we were filming what the best practices were. When we started, we thought, oh, let's just have the nature tell its own story. And then the thought process changed. No, we need people walking through. We need that perspective and that subconscious connection for people to help get scale. I think, so we have the photos. So there's Felix and I. Felix is looking at the drone stuff, and here's some drone a shot from the drone of one of Heaven's Bend location. And then we have our 360 camera in much more stable ground than the previously.
Okay, let me turn my mic on. So we're kind of switching gears now from talking about the production side of things and getting into the post-production side, which was, as Ian has said, it was all new to us. So this side of things was new to us as well, for sure. So we kind of had to start researching in different programs that we could potentially use. And we ended up landing on this program. So this is the edit view of the 3D Vista virtual tour program. And why we landed on this was because it offered a really good blend of simplicity, but also customization. So we weren't having to do any coding or anything really complex like that. We could drag and drop some elements, but at the same time, we could do some customization. And some of that customization was in, for instance, the menu structure. So that was all built in Photoshop, and I had to bring in elements and layer it all up and create different buttons, navigation buttons like back and forward, the menu. We ended up using a narration track, and so you can turn that on and off with a guide button. And then also we could add in some pre-built elements that they have, which are these hotspot buttons. And so these are just points of interest that, and you saw in the example video, where you can click on that and learn a bit more about that area. And so it really did come together and work well for us. And the other piece was we needed that customization because we wanted to have this to be viewable in both a VR headset, but also on a PC or a desktop application. And so the pre-built menus that 3D Vista had, they didn't exactly, some of them worked with headsets and some didn't. So then that was another motivator for why we had to customize and make our own menu so that it was usable in both headset and on desktop. And then we went in, and after we had built a couple of versions, we did some user testing, and that was great. We were able to bring in some instructional designers who weren't involved with the project, and they could just take a look at it from their perspective and offer some feedback, which was great. And that ended up informing decisions on the menu and different navigational components, things like that. And yeah, it was just great to get the the fresh eyes to look at this. And yeah, again, we were able to test in the amazing library experience lab and test out with their technology different headsets, like the Vive headset and various other ones. Like Google Cardboard as well was one that they had and they could rent out. So we rented that out many times in our testing, and yeah, it was just great, a really great resource to have that there. And we ended up going with Google Cardboard in mind because it was the most accessible for students. The library had a large number of them that they could rent out, and students could just use their phones inside of it. And I think ultimately Felix ended up getting, kind of going one step further and getting, I believe it was the Noon VR Pro headset, which also has flip down kind of headsets that you can, so you can hear the audio. Because one of the issues with the Cardboard was that the audio just plays out of your phone and it kind of goes into the room, so it could be distracting. So yeah, Felix ended up going with the headset with the nice headphones in them, and that works really well for a group scenario when multiple people are watching at the same time. Nobody's getting distracted there. Yeah. So, and one of the final pieces that we ended up adding to it was a voice, and I kind of referenced that narration. And this was added because we wanted to give the audience multiple ways of absorbing the information, so not just visual but also audible. So we were able to have Felix write up some scripts for each of the scenes, and then we were fortunate enough that at Mount Royal we had a professor who is a professional voiceover artist, and he was kind enough to lend his voice to the project, and it just really polished off the product and gave it a nice final touch. And here we are in the experience lab testing out the Vive headsets. And again, it's just like fantastic facilities. Like we were able to just walk over and they would accommodate us whenever and just show up and start trying stuff out and playing with it and really seeing what's the best use case here. So again, thanks to Anna and the team for accommodating our many testing requirements. And yeah, this is Felix in the edit suite. So this is kind of in the meat of the post-production process. We would bring in Felix to come down and test out and see what he thinks of it. And it was great because he would watch it, and he had a totally different perspective and was, you know, able to provide suggestions, and, you know, maybe we can add a graph hotspot here, or, you know, an explanation or a photo or something that would help kind of bolster certain areas. So it was a really collaborative process working with Felix, and I think it shows in the final product. Felix.
Yeah, thanks, Caleb. Yeah, so this project has had a huge impact, and it came in very handy. I think the first content we finished producing it about this time last year, or sometime in February, and then we went in for the lockdown, and I was teaching, and I needed this content. I needed most part of my courses. I didn't know how to assess. Then we're asking a lot of questions of how are we going to assess learning? How are we going to engage students in lab? There was lab components to this course that we haven't finished. How are we going to do all this? So right away, I used this material to engage students at that beginning, and it was really refreshing because it gave them, like, it was as if I was preparing for the lockdown before it happened when I shared this with them. And before we did this, we had students come into the library. This was before the lockdown, to try out some of this, and we got very good feedback. So going forward, our plan is to actually have this as an open education resource that people can access from our department's webpage. The webpage is up now, but we haven't filled it with the content, so we are still writing up that content so that it will be like a webpage that just gives you a tour guide through the content. And it's also being used by the University of Waterloo in the training of their research assistants who are working on this site. So think about the fact that most of these universities out in the East have projects here in the West. And for most students, it's the first time of coming to this side of the country. Forest, our environment look different from what you have in Ontario to an extent. So it's a way to engage them, also get them to know the instruments they'll be working with, how they actually installed, and some of the maintenance processes that will go on this site. So going into the site, the students won't be surprised or anything. And it also helps them to know who will be the good fit or the appropriate fit for the positions they have when they're hiring students. So we are still in the process of developing this, and someone approached me last week when they learned about this, and they told me about this Alberta Council for Environmental Education, which is an open source where you can share environmental science or environmental education content for K-12 students. And we are also thinking of integrating this or sharing this content here for those high school students who are thinking of pursuing a degree in environmental science. I think it will also be a good way to get our program out there for the students, and probably make Mount Royal a university of choice for them for environmental science. So yeah, we are using one stone to kill multiple birds here. So yeah, Ian. So I think that's about it. I would just want to acknowledge the fact that this project was funded by Mount Royal University's Teaching and Learning Grant. And I want to thank the University of Waterloo Hydrometeorological Research Group for giving us access to the sites that we used, and also for letting the students engage in the field production for this content. I got some feedback and review from Boreal Forest Education Specialist, Catherine Brown, who helped to review the video narration scripts that I've written. And finally, I want to thank the amazing academic media group that I worked with. It was a very good experience. I told these guys that they should get an honorary degree in environmental science after taking them through this process. And it was good to see how we can do great things coming together from different perspectives of what we do at Mount Royal. Thanks very much. And I think it's questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody. That was a really great presentation. We don't have any questions in the chat right now, but I'm happy to start off with my own question, if that's okay. I'm curious if there's a lot of research that you found in experiential learning using virtual reality, so other kinds of applications of this technology. Is there a lot? It sounds like, Felix, that there are some other areas in environmental science that are using this. Are there other disciplines as well? I was just wondering, because this is not something I'm super familiar with, so I was curious.
Yeah, so I think for what we are doing in environmental science, and at least at Mount Royal University, this is the pilot one. There is another one that was done. So this one was done on boreal forest ecology. And my colleague, who is my current chair now, Brian O'Sullivan, also worked with the AMG to produce another content for stack sampling, so which is another aspect. And sharing this now, other colleagues are coming forward to say, oh, we think this is going to be helpful for what we do in the field, and this will be a way to go, especially I think that with the pandemic, most people try to start producing contents like this for their labs, but I mean, it requires a lot of planning and thoughts going into it. So I think they weren't able to get everything done, but at least it pointed them in the right direction of what to do when you have some of the limitations of assessing a place or a location for field trips. And also in other fields like nursing, I think this is also another place where this would be very useful. And people in, I think, is it medieval English? And there is a prof that is also doing a related project like that at MRU. And there are other aspects of study that we can actually implement this. I've had conversation with people in business and policy who want to actually take this to maybe courtroom or to the House of Commons, just to get students an experience of how debates actually happen, the process of policy making. Just helping, using this to bridge that gap in cases where you wouldn't be able to bring 50 students into a place. You can just set a camera and it will do the job, and then you can either record the videos or take for the 360 pictures and show what you want to show. Yeah.
And we've seen other applications as well, because this was just the start of Caleb and I's VR experience. And some of those other applications that we've seen, for example, chemistry and physics, they've asked Caleb and I to come up with a tour of the chemistry and physics department, because there's been some research done, and if students have the ability to go to areas before they attend in class, they're more confident going into those areas. So we're busy doing a very comprehensive tour of what the equipment in the labs are, what the spaces look like. On the other side of the coin, just last week, Caleb and I were in Kananaskis filming a winter survival tour for the ETOL students. So we tromped around in the bush all day and filmed how to build a shelter in 360 and building fire. And so there's multiple applications for this, and it's quite exciting for us.
I have a quick question. I was wondering if you had like a technique for learning the new technology you were working with. Like, is there sort of like skills that you relied on in yourself that you knew, or was there sort of an approach like experimentation that you used to become more familiar with the technology and to learn it?
The first thing I'll say, and Caleb, jump in at any time, is there was a lot of watching YouTube videos and just seeing what people who had already broken ground before us had done. And then we got the camera, and like I said, we had a 2-week period where is quick, learn everything we can. So we were out testing in the courtyards of Mount Royal, seeing what it was like moving the camera if we want to move it instead of having it stationary. And then, you know, unfortunately, just because there was such quick turnaround between getting the camera and when we were filming, we couldn't actually be in the process of reviewing the footage until after we came back from Fort McMurray. But that's something else that we've done on projects since, is just say, okay, let's come up with best practices. Caleb put together a really great best practices worksheet for the department. So we're able to just look at that, because sometimes, 3, 4, 5 months will happen in between VR projects, and we'll be stuck in traditional video world, or doing drone photography, or doing animation. So we have these cheat sheets to help us now when we go back to it.
Yeah, and then I think just to add to that, with 3D Vista, the editing program, they have an entire suite of training videos online. So if I ever had a question, and I had many questions as I went along, for the most part, they were all on their website and on their YouTube channel, and they just had just a full suite of how to do ABC everything. So it was fantastic working with them. There was bugs, and there was hiccups along the road working with 3D Vista, and they were sort of a young company and figuring things out. But they were great, really responsive to work with and communicate with. There was so much communication with me and them that they ended up adding me into their production update notes every once in a while, which was kind of funny. But yeah, they were great.
I have a quick question for you. Do you have any plans on making some of your best practices available on a more open source scale for other people at the institution, or in fact other institutions, to kind of utilize if they're interested in getting started on a project like this?
It's not something we had considered, but I mean, we'd be happy to help out whoever asked. People kind of know on campus that we've been doing a lot of VR. We've had a few faculties approach us and just kind of ask about where should we start. University Advancement approached us just to help out with some of the stuff that they were going through, and finding out if there's a solution on campus already to help guide them when they're creating their own VR tours. So, I mean, as always, we're available to consult, and we'd be happy to share our best practices with anybody who asked.
I have another question. Is anybody in ADC working with you, Ian and Caleb, to look at the impact on students and evaluate that in terms of research?
Well, part of our process that we've been doing is, so we have debrief forms that we send to faculty after we work with them. And we created a few around VR that we've sent out to try and get what the student reaction is, or else we hear directly from faculty what the thoughts from students are on this. It's been very positive feedback so far from Felix, from Gwen, from Ian Sherrington, Etal. So we're constantly trying to figure out how we can make a better experience for the students and to enhance their learning. And so bugging the professors is my key way of getting that information.
And yeah, and just to add to that, even one of the things that's likely we're going to start using down the road is the quiz component, and introducing little quizzes, like simple stuff just to kind of test your knowledge, do a knowledge check throughout. And so that's something down the road that I think could be really engaging for students. And yeah, so that's early stages, but.
Caleb, is there a quiz element that you can embed in 3D Vista?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, so 3D Vista has come out with this kind of just another tool within the editing program where you can build in some quizzes.
Very cool. Audrey and Aaron know what I'm thinking.
Totally. I have one more question about
in the chat. So yeah, go ahead, Audrey.
Oh, is there another question? Sorry.
No, there's no other questions in the chat, so I was just inviting people to ask questions.
Just a last question for me. Working as a production team, like as a video production team, is like a lot of moving parts and a lot of people doing different jobs. And I wondered, like, did you guys find that you created a pipeline to like manage that work so that it was like done on time, or if you had like tips for somebody who's also into production work like that?
I mean, from my perspective, the biggest thing is just always being on the same page and communicating and divvying up what roles and responsibilities are for the day, or figuring out what the objectives are and the best way to get that. Caleb and I are fortunate. We've worked together on and off for several years now. So there is that shorthand that we have between each other when it comes to getting things, and there's a lot of similar thinking that goes on when we're out capturing stuff. Yeah, Caleb?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in regards to production and stuff, I mean, it's, yeah, about communication. It's about, you know, we set some milestones in the calendars and check in and see how progress is going and that sort of thing, so that we're not letting stuff slip by. So yeah, just, you know, simple stuff like that, utilizing the calendar, checking in, communication. Yeah.
Building room in to try new things when we are making our calendar deadlines. You know, I find there's no reason to try and rush through something, and you want to create opportunity to play around and try different things and experiment and find out what feels right when you're making something.
Yeah, and then I guess just the other piece would be on feedback. Is, you know, I would create a version of it and then I would go to Ian with it, and we can, you know, I've been staring at it for however many hours, so to have him come in and look at something is a really great perspective to have. That's similar to how we work with Felix or the instructional designers, but the feedback is key, especially in the editing part of it. And
fresh eyes is, I'm just going to expand on that. Fresh eyes is the most important part of our business, I feel. You know, I will finish a video and then I won't look at it for about 5 days. I'll work on other things. I'll forget all about the experience of making it. And then I'll look at it with fresh eyes, and it's completely different from that moment that you think, okay, it's great, it's done. There's nothing else I need to do to it. And 5 days later, it's like, well, I should tweak this. This doesn't feel right anymore. And it's about separating yourself from the experience before you go back to it, I find.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because like when you're doing something creative, but also something that's like a grind like that, where you have to watch a video over and over again and edit it and get it perfect, and then eventually, you know, you can burn yourself out creatively if you don't give yourself some time to like just reset your brain, and then it's like.
We've just got 6 minutes left. Are there any final questions?
I have one more question. Felix, do you have any plans to go back to the field and continue with this project or expand it in the future?
Yes, someone got in touch. So when people see this, they get in touch with me and ideas will come up and we start chatting about it. So someone with Ducks Unlimited Canada and got in touch with me last month, and they were talking about how about we do things like this for environmental assessment, classification, vegetation assessment, vegetation identification. So those plans, we are putting that together, and this is just a pilot to let us know if we can do this. And another thing I find out with most of those that are out there are still like, they're just 360 photos. They are not really videos, but that, which is where I think is the niche we're going into. We're taking a step further to go into creating 360 videos that people can actually feel like they are walking around instead of just staying in a place and turning around. So you can actually feel like you're moving, and you can click on interactive content and read about stuff. So with that, people are indicating interest. Another one, I think this was 2 days ago, from the LinkedIn. I shared this on LinkedIn. And someone from COSIA, that's Canada's Oil Sands Innovation Alliance, also got in touch to say that they've been working on something like this, but that they would like to sit down and know kind of what I'm thinking and if there is any collaboration there. So yeah, I think there are plans to keep this going. Once we have this one done, probably by summer, we should have everything set up for this one. We'll think of other ones, and if there will be opportunity, I think that Google Expedition would be a good place to have this on. But I think the way they are set up now, you can't really share this video content. It has to be like 360 camera ones. So yeah.
They also are discontinuing Google Tours VR as of June, which is just devastating for those of you who use it often. So yeah, I know Google has a new feature where they do, right now they've started off as museum tours that they've built in that do incorporate videos. So potentially once they expand that platform and make it more accessible for people to contribute content, that could maybe be a platform for something like this. Perfect. All right. So any other last questions before we wrap up for today? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to our speakers, Felix, Caleb, and Ian. I know that I thoroughly enjoyed this presentation. I learned so much, and I'm just so excited to see what new projects and things that all of you are creating. And it's really exciting that it's happening here at Mount Royal. I think it's something that our university is very, very proud of. So fantastic. And as well, thank you to our participants who joined us today. As Carrie did mention at the beginning, we have done a recording of this presentation, and that will be available on our YouTube channel afterwards to either watch again or share with your networks. All right, everyone, thank you and have a great day.
All right, bye everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.